Hello, everybody, and welcome to this intermission in Let's Talk Comics. Now, as I said before, today I'm doing something a little bit different than what I normally do, and it is something that's got me thinking a while ago, and it's why why should we talk about heroes? Why should we talk about superheroes? What is the point of reading comic books? What's the point of everything we do here in this weekly show? Twice a week, we're all gathering here to talk about comic books, right? And we sometimes tend to forget why we do the things that we do. Now, today I'm going to talk about what makes a hero, and this comes from me looking at multiple storylines, superheroes, characters, being an avid reader and English language arts teacher, and thinking about Joseph Campbell's monomyth, and there's this one archetype of hero, but the real question is, what is the hero, and how do we build it, and how does that hero work? So today is going to be a pretty short rant, because that's what it's going to be, and this comes from a conversation I had today with a 6 year old, and it got me to thinking like, well, why do we do the things that we do? Now, to start off, I'm going to put on the screen this cover from October of 1992. This is a closing to a short two-part storyline that plagued Superman. Like, absolutely plagued him. And the storyline is called Crisis in Hand, and it has to do with an issue that unfortunately in these times of coronavirus and lockdown and being in our houses has exacerbated, and that is domestic abuse and violence against women. This story of Powerless is Superman confronted with a neighbor who's beating his wife. And what can he do? What can the Man of Steel do despite all his powers? You got to remember a few things about Superman, and one of them is that he is above everything a firm believer in the law. Right? He totally, absolutely believes in the law and believes in the way things should have been done and the way things should be handled, and there's a system, and that there is a way out, if you will, for everybody. Now, the important thing here is that he believes in the system, but sometimes, unfortunately, the system is not ideal, right? Sometimes the system is not what we would expect, and we've seen a lot of that happen, right? We've seen a lot of injustice and the system letting the people down, but this is something that we can't forget. The system is there, and so Superman, as a firm believer in the system, is there. He he says like, "Oh my God, there's something. Some things are wrong, and maybe I can fix them." And this story actually starts with Superman, the Man of Steel, um, number 16, and this would have been number 37 that year, and it starts with this cover that I'm showing you right now, with Superman standing over a woman who is showing obvious bruises. and he's mad and angry in the cover, and we don't know why, right? So the story starts with Clark Kent in his apartment hearing um, the noises of another house, and there's a family of five kids, right? There's sorry, four kids, mom and dad. Dad is a working man, mom is a stay-at-home mom, and they're causing a ruckus. And we see um, the mom with a bruised face and bandages and everything. And then we switch to Clark's life, and we start hearing the things that are happening. And then um, this man is out of a job. He's unemployed. And he comes back home and he's like, how do I face my family saying I did not get the job that I was interviewing for? And well, when he comes in, he just starts taking it out on his wife, who just asked him out of normal curiosity, did you get the job? And he just starts going to town on him. And Clark, of course, he's the next door neighbor. He can hear everything. I mean, he can hear everything a mile away. He is perfectly aware of what's happening in the next room. Um, and he changes into his Superman clothes, comes out looking for where the knocks are coming through, and then he breaks through the wall, and we get another glorious shot of Superman, very, very angry because this this face, and let me just zoom in here to show you guys what I'm talking about. This is the face of a man who's angry, who's mad, who is really, really, really upset, and he goes and I've had enough. And then he crashes. He's hearing this guy say to his wife, I've had enough, you lazy cow. This time I'm laying down the law. And he comes in and he breaks into this house with that face right there. And it's not it's not a face you want to see on Superman, right? But then he takes out the guy and he doesn't hit the guy because he knows that uh if he so much as flicks his finger at this guy, he's going to kill him. So he just grabs him by the shirt, and then we see the wife calling the police and saying, Superman is killing my husband. Like he's just defending her, but still, he is being accused of killing the husband. The woman is defending the guy who's been beating her and hitting her, and it's just completely wrong. Now, we get a lot of images and Superman being upset and doing a lot of silly things because of that hurt that he's feeling, but he can't get it out of his mind, and he keeps hearing his neighbors, but he's like, well, she told me not to interfere, I'm not the law, what can I do? And he feels, as the cover that I showed you at the beginning says, powerless. He is feeling absolutely powerless to stop this guy because he's been told to stay out. And we get some wonderful art of Superman. But the important part about this story is that it's not Superman who saves the day. It's not this all powerful man who is um, saving the day. The person who ends up saving the day is Lois Lane. And we get some pretty rough art in Superman 72. Very, very rough. Uh, so I have to caution my viewers. it is tough to watch. It's tough to see this kind of art on the comic book page because you have this man just laying it on his wife. So much so that her head bangs against the lamp, and you can see the anger and the impact of that fist. And then on the opposite side of the page, we have Lois Lane saying, "That does it. Someone has to stop that lunatic." And this is where things change. Because this time it's not Clark running out the window or the door flying out. This time it's Lois in her exercise jumpsuit and attire, going out and saying, "I'm going to put an end to this. I'm going to stop this guy." Right? And Clark's like, "Lois, wait." And then it's like, who am I kidding? She's right. And then he walks out the door. But at the end of the day, Clark Kent, not Superman, Lois Lane and Clark Kent are the heroes. And we get this wonderful story of this very touching, very emotional, and very powerful story with this woman saying, "It's over. My marriage, everything." And Lois, the woman who can relate to her at a way that no man ever will be able to, is saying to her, "You're better off now, Andrea. Really, believe me." And the following conversations and the things that ensue are are very complicated. And a lot of people say like, "Oh, it's preachy and comic books shouldn't be doing this." And but I don't think so. I think they should be preachy. And they should be saying this because after all, comic books are there to teach us things, to tell us a little bit about the world and make us think and reflect. And we have this idea, this woman who has been in an abusive relationship, and she's very well portrayed as this woman who knows she's in an abusive relationship, but she thinks, and here's the kicker, she thinks she still loves the man who almost beat her to death. No, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then Lois says to Clark, like, "Hey, can you leave us alone? We have to have heart to heart between us two women." And they have a conversation about what it is and how this woman who's being abused, Andrea, is saying, "Oh, it's easy for you to say that everything will be all right. You have a job, you have income. I have nothing. All of my income comes from my husband. So what am I going to do now?" And to keep this short, she ends up convincing this woman to seek help at a women's shelter, at which is what was in the 90s in the US. But nowadays, there's so much more than just women's shelter. There's police helplines, and there's federal aid, and in many countries, there's a lot of support for women who need it. So at the end of the day, the hero was not Superman. The hero was not the guy who could fly. The hero was a woman who heard her neighbor being beaten by her husband and did something about it and intervened to stop it. And that, my friends, is what a hero is. It's a person who's willing to do something, to step up in the hard situations, despite possible consequences to themselves, and make the right call to make the world better for everybody. So, as I told you, this was going to be a very short rant, but I had to say it. So, this has been Dadrickant, and I hope that you too can be a hero someday, so that one day, very soon, nobody will have to be a hero because domestic violence will no longer be there. Possible consequences to themselves and make the right call to make the world better for everybody. So, as I told you, this was going to be a very short rant, but I had to say it. So, this has been Dadrikant, and I hope that you too can be a hero someday so that